Hello and welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the Podcast Domination Show. I'm Louis Ryan Diaz, your freaking host, and I'm the guy who's going to help you launch, distribute, monetize, and scale your podcast. Whether you have just started or you are already on the road and already on the way to growing your podcast. My goal for here is to help you have a big podcast or launch one, make money, and have some fun along the way. That's the goal. And these 4 pillars, what we're going over today, is how we achieve that. And if you haven't listened to the first 3 episodes, the launching, distribution, and monetization episodes, then go ahead and do that. Go ahead and stop and listen to those, or just listen to those after this. Either way, I know when people tell me to stop in the middle of a podcast, it's like, yeah, right, bro, I'm not stopping. There's no way. So I'm not going to force you to do that. But I want to go over with you these 6 pillars of scale that I found to be very, very helpful. And it took a few years to figure this out. It took a few years of testing, a few years of looking at what works with clients, a few years of trying some of this stuff out on my own, a few years of failing at a bunch of stuff and trying and testing a bunch of wild stuff and learning from others who are way smarter than me to figure this out. And I don't have it all figured out by any stretch of the imagination. Trust me. I am a learning machine and I always try to get better. But these 6 pillars of podcast scale are going to help you identify the triggers and the leverage you can pull to catapult your show up the rankings, catapult your influence, and catapult your message to new listeners. So let's just jump into it right now. Pillar number 1 is media features. So that basically means blogs that are in your niche, online publications and magazine, other podcasts. And those are really huge sites. If you can get on, for example, you can get on like Forbes and Entrepreneur, or you get your podcasts on Forbes magazine and Entrepreneur magazine and get them on those websites. They have huge amounts of domain authority. They have a lot of backlinks and they're a very high quality site. So you would benefit greatly because people are going to find your show because they get millions of listeners or viewers every month. People are going to find your show. They're going to click through and they're going to start to download your message if they like what you're saying. So media features like that, also blogs or like micro influencers or niches could be really great. If you're in the personal finance space, you collaborate or interview or bring other people on or pay for a listing or a post on someone's niche blog that has your ideal customer, then guess what? You're going to grow. And it's quite simple. A lot of people have done it before with other mediums such as YouTube and blogging, written content. So it can definitely work, and I've seen it work in podcasting. Another one is online publications. And these are things like trade show websites or places where your ideal customer is at. So, and then obviously not to forget podcasts, another favorite there. I like to think of it like the radio nowadays, right? It's pretty much new agey radio. I mean, look at it. If you look at a podcast, you have a host, you have an intro and outro, you have listeners, you have guests, you have segments, you have editing and post-production, distribution. I mean, it's pretty much a freaking radio show, people. Like, I don't know too many differences between it. So it's pretty much a radio. So podcast is another media place that, in terms of scale and building a show fast, this is why you've seen a lot of, say, like I've seen, personally observed, found this really fascinating. I'll share this with you. There's but there's a handful of journalists that have come into podcasting probably the last 2 years, I would say, that have skyrocketed because they understand how to leverage media. They understand the mass media game. They understand how to get features and get listings and basically get their podcasts into mass media publications and out to the masses really fast. It's why they've grown probably way faster than 99.9% of the other people in this industry, because they know how to play the game. This is the one lever they pull when it comes to scaling that will grow their show. And they know it grows their show. That's why they do it really, really well. Number 2 is tribe building. So there's other shows out there such as Tim Ferriss, Art of Charm, Andy Frisella, who have grown tremendously through their tribe, meaning their people love their show so much that they just go out and talk about them. They just are out there and they're just talking about them. They're saying, hey, I love the show. This episode was great, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? It works because word of mouth, good product is your best marketing. So if you have a good podcast, you have a loyal tribe, the best thing you can do is start to leverage that tribe. I talk about this in my book a little bit in the last chapter, but This is a huge scaling secret that if you can incentivize and mobilize the tribe, the people who are already listening to your show, to share and grow the show with you, then it is a huge, also very cost-effective way to grow a podcast. So that's number 2, tribe building. Number 3 is paid traffic 2.0. When I say paid traffic 2.0, I'm not talking about doing a bunch of stupid Facebook ads or Instagram ads or YouTube ads. I'm talking about strategic strategery, right? So that's using other podcast specific or audio first platforms such as Spotify or Pandora or Overcast. I'm not saying, Facebook and Instagram are horrible, but they're kind of basic, right? Everybody's doing them. So there's other ways. You can also pay for listings or pay for shout outs through other podcasters who have your audience. You can also pay to collaborate. You can also pay for commercial spots on other shows. You can buy someone's outro inventory. So think of someone's outro. If they have a huge show, you could maybe pay to sponsor your episode or one episode in particular on their show notes and on their outro episode or outro feature spot. You can always, of course, use the traditional methods too, but paid traffic 2.0 for me is all about leveraging connections and things that are kind of unscalable, right? It's funny enough how it's in the scaling section, but if you were to pay a friend of yours or someone, a mutual contact who had a huge show for a 30-second shout out, a good sum of money, that podcast episode is going to last for a lot longer than that Facebook ad you're running or that Instagram ad you're running. Same thing with Overcast. I was showing someone today how to use it and they're like, wow, this is really cheap for 30 days. I was like, I know, that's why you should do it, because it's going to get you more and more traffic than trying to pay Facebook. It's much easier too. So paid traffic 2.0 is about being smart with your money. It's about getting more creative. Paid traffic, you can also think of things in this realm as well as like contests that you would maybe pay for a sponsor to help you run, where you would get featured on their email list and you get featured on their website and blog because you're giving away their product for free. Obviously, you have to buy that product. That's why I call it paid traffic, because you're having to shell out money for it. But it's a great way to differentiate yourself and make your show different and stand out. So that's number 3. Number 4 is speaking. Speaking at offline events, online summits, webinars, private mastermind talks. I've done a couple of these, specifically a lot of the mastermind talks I've done, and it builds my show every single time, gives me reviews, and gets me more traffic. And highly qualified traffic too. I don't really care too much about having a huge show. Personally, I care about having really targeted listeners. So this is perfect for scaling with the right kind of audience in mind. So speaking offline, if you're already speaking at summits, the easiest, fastest way to get more podcast listeners is to get them to download or subscribe to your show while you're on stage. So you can simply say, hey, pull out your phone, go to iTunes or whatever app you listen to podcasts from, and subscribe. And I'm going to send you a free gift. And then you direct them to, say, a landing page or something. And simple as that. It's very simple. So speaking offline and also online summits and webinars and mastermind talks are amazing. Next, partnerships. So this comes in the form of sponsors, collaboration, like cross collabs, and contests like we were talking about before. Actually, we'll leave contests out of this one. So we'll just say sponsors. Sponsors, if you can orchestrate a deal where they share you on their email list and you do the same for them as a kind of a quid pro quo, negotiate it for a cheaper price, your show can grow faster. Cross collaborations with other influencers in your space. They don't have to be podcasters. They can be other people. These can be, you can do Instagram TV stories or Instagram TV, interviews. You can do YouTube interviews. You can do Facebook Live interviews, all that stuff. That can all be under the umbrella of partnerships and strategic partnerships where you're both helping each other achieve a mutual goal. So that's number 5. And number 6 is influencer marketing. And this is specifically where an influencer would, it's not a collaboration, it's a little bit different. An influencer would shout out your show. They would pick up your show and post it or reshare it on their channel, whatever that may be. Maybe it's email list. Maybe it is a IG account. Maybe it is while they're speaking. Influencer marketing, getting others to promote your show to their fans. And this can be through interviews too. This can be like, where you have someone on their show and on your show, and then they also help you promote it. that's a way you're leveraging an influencer to market your product, being the podcast. So that is number 6. And I want to dive into some of these a little bit deeper. So we'll go back to the top here with media features. And media feature, a couple of tools, or to back up, I guess, why we're doing it. It's simple. Large amounts of traffic for little, the same amount of work you would go through if you're trying to pitch someone else. So we want to maximize our ROI on time. So that's why we choose things like this. But a couple of tips. Number one, I recommend you to get a book called The Free PR Book by Cameron Herold and another guy. Where I just got a free copy from Cameron this weekend. Shout out to Cameron. But he is one of the best at getting free publicity, free PR. His companies have grown fast because of his ability to get free PR and get traffic to his businesses. And that is an amazing book. I have it on Kindle. I also have the hard copy book. Check it out, the Free PR Book. Just type in Free PR Book on Google and it'll come up. Another resource with you, something I talked about before, is Haro. So tons of journalists and people looking to write stories for different media outlets are looking for stories and looking for them to make their lives easier. So the best thing you can do is help them out. And I think this is a really good way to start. If you take the Free PR Book and you also Haro and also a cell phone, you will be golden. And you can pitch your show, or you can work with someone who can help you pitch their show too. So either way, it's a great way to help you get more media features and get your show out there. So that was one of the few things or few tools I wanted to share with you on that note. Next, we've got, luckily enough, if you haven't listened to the podcast episode I did with Mike and Rick Talismans, can't never pronounce their names. Sorry, guys. But if you haven't listened to the episode with Mike and Rick, go and check it out. It's an amazing one about how to build a tribe from nothing. And what I love, or what I got from it, was basically these couple of tips. Number one, tribe building. Why we're building the tribe is to encourage word of mouth. So word of mouth marketing is going to be your best friend for scaling and growing your podcast fast. Maybe not so fast in the beginning, but faster as you get along, get better. So more and more people start to talk, more and more people will recommend. And don't forget, you can always recommend and ask people to recommend your show or an episode to a friend throughout the podcast. I always think that's a super underleveraged thing. But a couple of things I learned from Mike and Rick in terms of tribe building to help you build this tribe that's going to help you scale your podcast is, number one, have a temple. So this is a place where people can gather. If you think of churches or religions, they always have some form of temple that's like a common area where they can actually gather. An example in the podcasting space would be a Facebook group here. Number two, incentivize others to interact. So incentivizing action with things like group calls, bonus content, one-on-one Q&A, things like that, to get people to say, hey, I want to help Lewis and I want to help grow a show so he can give me X or Y. So basically, if they do X, you will give them Y. Number three, on tribe building, give them a name. My name is the Dominators. If you're listening to this episode or this podcast, you are a dominator by definition, my friend. And that's the name of my tribe, the Dominators. So this is huge. It's something that John Lee Dumas talked about in the beginning. It's the first guy I actually learned it from, was John Lee Dumas. And he's doing some amazing stuff as always. But this is the biggest thing. I think he called it naming your tribe. Basically, we want to name our listeners, give our people an identity that they can grab on and actually be proud to be a part of. That's number four. Number five is asking questions. As simple as it sounds, guys, to scale a show, you have to ask questions and actually answer questions for your audience. So that is simple, and we talk about that a lot in here, so I'm not going to go into too much detail or anything like that. So tribe building, a few keys there on how to build a tribe that's going to help you get to where you want to go with the podcast. A couple other things we will touch on here for the scaling of your show. I'll give you one more tool, actually. We'll give you one more tool, and I thought this was really cool. I learned this from a marketing event in LA a few months ago, and that was Cameo. So Cameo, if you go to cameo.com, C-A-M-E as in efficient, O as in orange, Cameo. It's a place where you can buy shout-outs. It's really cool. You can buy shout-outs from influencers, guys like Snoop Dogg or what's the guy from The Prophet, Marcus Lemonis. People you know on TV, you can actually purchase their ability or their voice, or, basically you pay them X amount of money and they will give you a shout out. So you could basically pay, like, let's just say my dad loves the show Hardcore Pawn from I forget what the guy's name is, but Chum Lee is one of the actors. So if you know who Chum Lee is, he's the guy from Hardcore Pawn, or no, Pawn Stars. That's the name of the show, Pawn Stars. If you watch Pawn Stars, Chum Lee is the big goofy guy. You can actually pay Chum Lee to do for $300, like do a shout out. And so I can have him do the shout out to the Podcast Domination Show. And then I can take that video and I can put it on social media and I can actually use it for my marketing. So very cool way. What I would suggest is taking that and then running traffic to it, or just posting it in various Facebook groups and on your social media to actually get people to share it. That's a piece of content that most people would actually share if they did something fun or interesting. So we'll leave it at that for scale. There's a lot of things we can dive into, but that is the gist of it. Those 6 pillars, go back and listen to those again. You know what? Matter of fact, I'll read off them again just so you don't have to save you some time. Number 1, media features, blogs, niche blogs, online publications, podcasts. Number 2, building a hyper tribe to help you share your show organically through word of mouth. Number 3, paid traffic 2.0. Remember, we talked about different places other than Facebook and Instagram to market your show. Number 4, speaking offline, speaking at online events, speaking at private masterminds, and things of that nature. Number 5, partnerships via sponsors or cross collaborations with other influencers. And number 6, influencer marketing. So getting people who are big on social media to shout you out. Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Getting people to take your show and give it a recommendation as a trusted source of content. So again, guys, that's the 6 pillars of monetization, of scale. That is our formula and our framework. Is how we help our clients get from point A to point B. It is not an overnight process, and it always looks different from a client to client basis. But this is the framework that I teach, that I help people with. And be sure to share the show with a friend who's launching a podcast, or maybe they're just stuck and they don't know how to grow their show. I think this would be really helpful for them, and I'd love you if you did that for me and for the show. And maybe I give you a prize, a bonus training or something in return. So be sure to connect with me that way. If you do that, just email me, Luis, Luis, at podcastdomination, spelled exactly how it sounds, .co. If you do that, email me there and I'll give you a free prize, some kind of bonus training that I have in my vault. So all is good. Enjoy the show and take action on what was talked about today. And I'll catch you later. Now go do something. Peace. Hey, and don't forget, I have a number of free bonuses for you. These are free templates, guides, and stuff that I've actually included in my recent book, How to Get Your First 100,000 Downloads in 100 Days. But you don't even have to buy the book. I'm just going to give this to you for free. All you have to do is go to LuisRyan, LuisRyan.com/book. There is a simple form where you fill out your name and your email, and you get a ton of free stuff, all the templates and guides that I included in the book, but you don't have to buy the book. So you're saving yourself a chunk of money that literally will take you probably less than 2 minutes to accomplish or perform. So enjoy that. That's my gift to you. Use it. Don't just let it fall by the wayside, and I'll see you on the next episode.